Welcome to Satsang. Today we're going to be talking about something which is a little different. Okay, there are two subjects that are very, very powerful. It's happening all the time, more and more recently. One is the existential breakdown that happens from fear, and we go through a tremendous change. It was also triggered because one of my friends, not personal friends, but I love him, Robin Williams, he died from suicide, hung himself, and so it's something that is dear to me. And the other one is Spiritual Emergence, which also was triggered by Jerry. Okay, so before we start, I'd like you to picture the following: the journey that we all go through. Okay, and there are three ways that I can make it a little simpler to understand. There are three ways that we cover life, how we go through life. Picture yourself a wave of the ocean. Now the ocean is one, the waves can be billions and billions of them. You're just one wave. Now this particular wave believes that the moment it dies as a wave, it will drown into the ocean and be no more. That's number one. Number two, wave feels that, yes, I'm a wave, I'm the same water as the ocean, so I am part of the ocean. That's number two wave. Number three wave says, if I am a wave, I am the same water. If I am the same water, I am the same ocean, and I am one with the ocean. That's the third one, okay? What we consider to be the awakened human being. Okay. Now, there are two things to make us go a little deeper to understand, to cover, which is scientifically proven. Scientists and physicists know this to be a fact. And that is that the universe is holographic. And the other one is that there is no duality or polarity. But let's cover the first one. Now, when we talk about holographic, means that everything is the same, is one. Holographic means that the smallest wave in the ocean is still the whole ocean. Okay? If you take a cell from a human form, you can clone that same form. In other words, the smallest fragment in the universe is still the whole. So even though we seem to be just one person individually, in billions and billions of other forms, yet we are all the same one, the same laws, the same universe, and all the laws of the universe are also the laws in us. Okay, this is called holographic. There is no separation at all. And it is this separation that makes us suffer so much and create so much chaos in life. Number two is even more powerful, and this is also mentioned in A Course in Miracles, and it's mentioned something like this. That which encompasses, that which is all-encompassing, can have no opposite. Okay, I'd like you to feel that. Now, if you feel this one sentence, it will it will blow you away. That which is all-encompassing can have no opposite. Do you know what it means? when you realize this, it means that if you believe that there is good and evil, the moment you realize that all-encompassing is that good and evil are one. If you believe there is love and fear, then you also come to know when you awaken that they're both one. If you believe there's an up, there's also a down. Okay? If you believe there's a high self, there's also a lower self, but at the same time they're both one. You're a human being, but they're both one. You're a being playing the role of human. And it was given the name that you have. So this is so important to realize that everything is one, everything is one. Now the one thing that brings the greatest fear, which is the first one that we said, the wave that thinks, oh my God, I'm just a wave and I'll soon drown into the ocean and be no more. This, did you know that this is the belief of 95% of the population? The fear of the void. But you see, if you think about the void, okay, you believe that there is something vacant, something totally empty, which is impossible. Because the void and fullness, or emptiness and fullness, are one. You see, isn't this beautiful when you realize that there are no opposites? So this means that no matter what it is one with its opposite. So that's what realization is. Now, I'm emphasizing this because once we get this point, everything starts becoming so clear. Yeah.
That's why you can, I mean, when you accept something, the fear of it merges with love, right?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Well, you see, this. Let's bring that love and fear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, love and fear are opposites in the sense of us human understanding it. You're afraid, and that's why you cannot love, because as long as there's fear, you cannot love, right? But at the same time, what is the fear about? Wanting love. Mm-hmm. So the more you want love, the more you feel deprived, the more you feel rejected, the more you feel you're not wanted, the more you feel there's something wrong with you, I am not good enough, blah, blah, blah. You see? Why? Because inside, you want the opposite. You want love. So here is fear and love become one the moment you understand. So the third one, the wave that finally realizes, even though I seem to be just a wave, yet I am the same water as the whole ocean, and therefore the ocean itself. Now, do you realize what I've just said? That everything is one? This means that you're God. Mm-hmm. Got it? This blows you away. All religions will turn against you if a fully awakened person will say, I am God. And then we say, oh, you mean we are to revere you? No, because so are you. Okay? So this is the great understanding that there is nothing that you lack in you. You are the totality. Now, we discussed the tree in the beginning, okay? The wave that drowns and thinks it's no more. This is the fear of death, which everybody harbors in their heart in the beginning. Number two, no, I am part of God, which is still not complete realization, but this comprises most seekers of truth. And they spend all their life seeking and never arriving at the last one. The last one, there's nothing to seek because you're already it. Once this even moves inside you just a little bit, you'll begin to feel a change. And that's where we're going to talk about the spiritual emergence. Okay. Now, there are three things that most everybody goes through, but at the same time, everybody experiences the same eventually. But because all journey is not just our lifetime. It's an unending evolution until we all come to that same one place. You know, it was T.S. Eliot who wrote, he said, we shall never cease from exploration. At the end of all our exploring, we shall arrive at where we started and know that place for the first time. That's called awakening. So there are the three stages, okay? The first one is called Existential Breakdown. Existential breakdown is something that I've got to talk about, although it's not a pleasant thing. It isn't pleasant because this is when fear takes over so much that you become depressed. Well, the moment you become depressed, you start to fight this depression. You go into drugs, you go to a doctor, you go to a psychiatrist, they give you things to take, you start getting worse and worse and worse because you cannot get rid of depression by outside means. Depression, do you know what depression is? Depression. Okay?
Suppression.
You're totally separate and totally into yourself. And the more you fight it, the more you resist it, the more you wish you weren't depressed, the worse you get. until such time that there is an existential breakdown. That existential breakdown comes to the point where you commit suicide. Okay? And this is what happened to my friend Robin Williams. And it has happened a lot. I've done a lot of research, and the suicide rate, it's increasing at an alarming rate every year, because we are moving very, very fast in consciousness. And because of that speed of consciousness, everything is surfacing. The things that you never dealt with, the things that you never resolved, the things that you never looked at are now coming to the surface. And you are facing them. And you're facing a lot of loss and a lot of pain. Okay? If you do not meet it, you can have an existential breakdown. This happens to most of the people because they still believe that there is death, they still believe there is limitation, they still believe there is separation. Then there is a middle ground. A middle ground is when you are constantly seeking love all the time, wanting love. And you're never satisfied, but the seeking of the love is not that you want someone to love, you want someone to love you. So what is happening all the time is that you are trying to make up for the things that you never got as a child. And so the first 6 years of life are very, very important years, because that's where it forms your personality and the way you look at life. So if as a child you have never known deep warmth and love and intimacy, you start seeking it as you grow up. And you start thinking that if I find it, I'm going to be fulfilled. But one other things which is horrendous for most people, which are in the middle ground here, between existential breakdown and spiritual emergence, is that they are in the middle. They are seekers, they are spiritual, they are beautiful people, they know all the truth, but somehow or other they haven't totally found that total completion, because they still think it's out there rather than in here. Okay, so now I'd like to talk about spiritual emergence. Now, spiritual emergence is very powerful. I'd like to pay attention to this, because this happens when you totally start loving who you are. Now, to love who you are simply means this, that you realize that you're not only part of God, you are God. Okay, this is almost, if I said this 20 years ago, it would be blasphemy. Okay, but now people are beginning to realize that. You see, we are that. And so the moment you find that, you find lasting peace. Now, spiritual emergence happens when somehow or other, because your love of truth is so great, because you want so much to go beyond that middle ground, to really find the truth that you are, that it becomes a driving force in you. The moment the driving force is awakened, something happens. It could be minor, and it could be in a different way. Sometimes, because we don't understand it, we see it as a medical problem. Okay? An example of this was Jerry Ewan, a man I've learned to love greatly, and I love having him here in Satsang. He's out of town, but he'll be coming next Satsang. Okay, now when Jerry walked in, he's, as usual, very bright, very vivacious person, always laughing. And he said, I had a stroke, he said, about a week or so ago. And of course, I knew what actually happened. But I said, oh, he looked very healthy. And of course, the doctors never found anything wrong. But incidentally, if you want to know more about how it happened to him, listen to the video number 69, in which he talks about it at the end, the last 15 minutes of the talk. If I go into it into detail, it takes too much time. However, he realized one thing, okay, that there was no fear in anything that happened to him. Absolutely no fear. And this is what happens with spiritual emergence. Okay, it could be very serious. You could even be dying, but you're not afraid. Fear immediately goes, which means one thing. The only thing that holds us back is fear. Okay? And fear comes from uncertainty and doubt and confusion and other things, of course. Because what is fear? What is fear?
Lack of love.
Okay, but what is it really? Fear itself. You can say
The
you're
unknown.
losing something, is that?
The unknown?
Yes, but
The future.
the unknown is the closest thing. Okay, the unknown is the closest thing. It is what you don't understand. That's what fear is. It is something you don't understand. So what do you do if there's something you don't understand? Do you go about to understand it? Hmm?
Sometimes.
That's one thing not to do. I'm sorry.
No,
Because
and
you're very
I
wise.
know that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you work out trying to figure it out.
Don't try to understand truth. Don't try to understand that which right now is acting as fear, but get into the fear itself. Get into it so totally that you re-experience it as it is, without judgment, without its story. Okay, that's absolutely essential. So this is how, because fear is something you don't understand, and therefore it leaves you confused and uncertain and doubtful, and what shall I do? And then the rest comes. All the letters I get is, I'm confused, what shall I do? But please advise me, what's my next step? Okay? The point is, get in touch with that very thing you don't understand. And don't try to understand it, because then the mind is involved and the heart is left out. Feel the sensation of fear. Feel the thing, but not what it's trying to tell you. What it's trying to tell you is usually a lie. Okay, so I'd like to talk about a woman who experienced spiritual emergence, and her name is Byron Katie. Now, Byron Katie, another woman I admire greatly. Byron Katie was a woman very violent. She was fat, violent, hateful, and they didn't know how to deal with her. So they locked her up in an attic in a halfway house. Anyway, to make a long story short, one day, as she was there all alone, a cockroach crawled up her leg. And the moment she saw the cockroach, she started laughing. You know the story, right?
No.
No? Oh, okay. But you know Byron
Yes,
Katie?
yes.
Okay. She started laughing. And that laughter was so intense that all ego was gone. And when her ego was gone completely, and she was so transformed, so totally transformed, this was a spiritual emergence, okay? So transformed that she didn't even recognize her own family, because everybody was herself. For example, and this is fact, you know, she might be listening to this video herself. She would be walking down the street and there's a door open, and she would walk in. And then she sits down on the couch of that house and watch TV. So the owner of the house comes and says, "Do I know you?" And she said, "Why do we need to know each other? We're all family." She was totally transformed. And when they brought her children and her husband, she says, "Oh, they're such beautiful, dear children." And she didn't recognize them as her children. So she had to be retrained and completely from the beginning. Could you close the door? Yeah, so it won't interfere. Thank you so much. If it gets too warm, just open it again. Yeah. So, therefore, they had to train her over and over again. And now she's one of the most beautiful teachers. She travels all over the world and teaches the work, which is made up of 4 questions, but I don't want to go to the 4 questions now because then we'll lose the point. Another emergence is also Eckhart Tolle. He used to live here in Vancouver, and he was a man who was very intelligent, very bright, but he became totally desperate, unhappy, depressed, and he came to the point where he was trying to commit suicide, and he shouted. He said, "I can't live with myself anymore." And then he looked at it and says, I can't live with myself anymore, there are two of me. And for a moment, he was stunned. The next day, it changed him so much that he sat on a bench. And he did it for a number of years. Just sat on a bench, in bliss and peace, but transformed. It was 10 years later that he wrote the best-selling book, The Power of Now. Because it took him that long through a spiritual emergence to actually clarify what you went through. I'd like to tell you something very briefly. I didn't have any transformation like Byron Katie has had, but what happened to me a few years ago, I developed a great fever. Now, I was living with Sylvia at the time. I was in this very apartment, and I was already teaching satsang. Okay? But all of a sudden, for no apparent reason that I know, except what doctor said, but I'll tell you that later, I developed a fever. And this fever was coming to the point where it was over 105. Now you know that if it gets to 105, your brain could be fried, you see. And Sylvia got so terribly afraid. She said, Burt, we've got to go to a hospital. I've got to take you to a doctor. And I said, no. You know, I said, I don't want to, you know, to go to a doctor, go to a hospital. And I was not afraid at all. Nothing, absolutely. I was taking very calm. Well, to make a long story short, one morning I was dying. And literally. And I knew I was dying. And I couldn't get up, I couldn't walk, nothing, I was just there. You know? And Sylvia looked at me, and she panicked, and she called 911, and they took me to the hospital. While going to the hospital, I prayed to Bhagavan and said, I am going to die, and I give myself to you completely, I am yours. And as soon as I reached the hospital, there was a bright light. It was so glorious. And I was in such ecstasy that I wasn't laughing, but I was smiling all the time, you know, at everybody. And I saw all the nurses and the doctors trying to find out what was wrong with me, and nobody had any idea what was happening. And I'm smiling and happy, and one doctor looked at me very grim, you know, and he said to me straight in my face, he said, this is very serious, you know. and then I'm still smiling, and I said, what is he talking about? Nothing can happen to me. I am fine, you know. And remember, Sylvia is with me at all times, you know. And the reason she was so strong is because she knew that I wasn't worried at all, not afraid at all, you know. And anyway, they locked me up in a room, and it was isolated. There was no window, there was no air. And they put me because they didn't know whether I was in some foreign land, I got some foreign disease, something. And because what I haven't told you is that my face was extremely pain and drawn, and my back and chest were all streaks of blue, black, and red. And my left leg got a little bit bigger than this leg. And I was a mess. But at the same time, I was very happy. So when the doctor looked at me, and I still smiling at him and looking so happy, he said, he's an idiot. He thought I was an idiot. And I heard it. But Sylvia said, she looked at me, she understood. They left us in the room by ourselves, and she wouldn't leave. And she said, I won't leave, Burt. And she lay down on the floor, and she slept on the floor next to me. She was an angel. She's probably listening to this soon. Anyway, so that was my story. Now, after 4 or 5, incidentally, I couldn't eat the food from the hospital, so she brought me the food. It was organic, vegetables and fruit. And in 4 days, maybe 5 days to be exact, I was home healthy. Okay, now, the doctors had to come up with something. And one of the doctors said, it's probably blood poisoning. Okay, through tests. So whenever somebody asked me, what happened to the satsang, you were not giving satsang for a while, I said, well, I had blood poisoning. To make it simple so I don't go into a story. Okay, so spiritual emergence can happen in many, many ways. I'm fascinated with it, and I'm doing a lot of research on the internet, and I've made friends with some very great teachers. One of them is an English woman. Her name is Hazel. I forgot her name. She had a spiritual emergence while going through a turnstile, you know, in the subway, and all of a sudden she was locked, and she felt this incredible pain all over her body, but she wasn't afraid. And all of a sudden she began to see what people are thinking, what is happening, everything. But they took her to the hospital because this is, remember, that when the body goes through a transformation, people who don't understand, they think that person is sick. What makes the difference between a sick person, medically sick, and also someone who's going through spiritual emergence? What is the difference between the two?
The reaction.
There is no fear at all. Yeah. There is absolutely no fear. You see? And so this is also what brings the healing. And she healed, and now she's a tremendous great teacher. So, okay. Now this is spiritual emergence. Now, what is it that we have to go through in order to change? Now, most people don't change through spiritual emergence because their love of truth, living in the world, is not that great. So what happens is that they pray a lot, maybe they still go to church, maybe they still do this, they do that, but doing has nothing to do with being. You see, it is being that brings transformation, not doing. And so what is the doing? I'd like to repeat again in a different way what we covered last satsang. The 4 stages of attention. Now, in the beginning, most people, 95% of the population, belong to the first stage. The first stage is filled with fear. But they live with fear 24 hours a day, and they don't call it fear, they call it life. They call it everyday life. They're worried about the future, they're worried about what happened, they're constantly concerned about how they're going to make it financially, you know, what to do with their life and how to go about it. There's constant uncertainty, there's constant fear, there's constant doubt. This happens most of the time. This fear is beautiful because it is through fear that we learn to love. Because if somebody were to ask, what is your greatest lesson? The greatest lesson is not just going on your knees and praying, or just meditating, or just doing different spiritual things. The greatest lesson to learn is, what am I afraid of? What is my greatest fear? And then to go beyond that and see it as the very love you need. You see? But in the beginning people don't do it. But the moment they start looking at their fear, the moment they start understanding fear, that there's nothing to be afraid of, because it's all God, it's all love, it's all beauty, it's all glory. You see? The moment you completely trust that, and you begin to feel that all fear is simply a way of learning about love. The moment that happens, you go into the second stage. So the second stage is that you see yourself all the time seeking love, seeking approval, seeking attention, seeking somebody to make you feel good about yourself, seeking ego aggrandizement, and there's nothing wrong with that. You see, the point is never to judge yourself. See, because when you're in the second stage, you're doing a lot of, you know, you start in the beginning, before you're on the second stage, you start judging yourself. But in the second stage, you also begin to break through into loving who you are. That no matter what you are doing, no matter what is happening, you can still love you. Because love is God. Love is the wholeness. Love is the totality. There is nothing but love. So no matter what you do, love yourself. Okay? And the loving of yourself brings you into compassion for yourself, brings you tolerance for yourself, brings you understanding. And all the time telling yourself that there is no right or wrong, there is only love. You see, because everything is one. So at this point you're bringing everything together. Everything together. You see? All beauty, all love, all joy, all happiness, all peace is you right this moment. But you have to accept it, you have to claim it. You see? The one thing is that most people are ready to love another, but they're never ready to love themselves. And because loving yourself begins the real love. And so in the second stage, you begin to learn to love you. When you start seeing that everything is towards love, you begin to see it everywhere, right? You know, look at anybody. Whatever they're doing, they're wanting love. You know, the slightest, do you see it? I'm sure you probably see it everywhere. You know, you see it everywhere? Like everybody is seeking love, wanting love. Even when you sit, you know. Right now I'm opening my legs because I am more comfortable this way. I'm seeking comfort. You see, I'm seeking a form of love. So all the time we're doing that. Then we go to the third stage. The third stage is when our attention, because it's all about attention, what you're paying attention to, okay? What your attention is focused on. On the third stage, your attention is totally on love, because you see it everywhere. I remember in the beginning when Sylvia, she wanted a cat, and we were living together here, and now she's in Portland. She listened to the last satsang because I had a tripod, you know, with iPod. Anyway, and I always wanted a dog, and but a cat is so easy, you know. You don't do anything. You just feed it, and that's it. I don't have to wash it. I don't have to do anything. Walk it or anything, right? So when Sylvia left, he became my friend. One day, I kid you not, I was looking into his face like this. I was looking like that, and the moment I looked into his eyes, I saw God. Mm-hmm. And this is it.
He's like, what did I just see?
Yeah, every living thing becomes that energy. And you look at a flower and you see God. You look at it was that famous playwright. What was his name? I mentioned him last satsang. Miller. Miller. He says, if you pay attention to the smallest thing, even a blade of grass, you begin to see the miracle and the wonder of life. All it needs is your attention. Total 100% attention. When you have that 100% attention, then of course you move to the fourth, but the fourth moves by itself. It's called witnessing. Witnessing is what we call a person who's achieved masterhood. Okay, they are totally awakened human beings. And wherever they look, whatever they see, they're very ordinary people on the outside, but whatever they see God. You see, they don't see anything else. Nothing else. There is nothing that is separate. You see, because they have trained themselves through attention from the first, second, third, and finally the fourth, which is called the witness. The witness sees without ego, without judgment, and without making up its mind, good or bad, right and wrong, should or shouldn't. That will completely fall away when you have the oneness feeling. Now, what I'd like to do, I picked quite a few email questions here, and I'd like to each one of you read one, and then we explore them. Okay? Okay. So. Can I start with you?
Sure.
All right, so this particular one, the most important one, is the question at the end.
Okay.
So maybe you'd like to read the last bit, maybe the last question there.
Would you care to talk about this feeling of void?
Oh, okay. So I just saw it now as I gave it to you. So let's talk about the feeling of void, which most people are afraid of, okay? What is void? When we think of void, we think of something vacant, right? Something empty, right?
Yeah.
But didn't we say that everything is one?
Yes.
So if everything is one, where did the earth come from? Where did people come from? Where did the cosmos come from? If everything is truly void, so there must be some energy within that void, some source that produced all life. Okay? So we can call it pure energy or pure awareness. From pure awareness came waves. Waves is what makes it possible for us to, you know, you grab the phone, we take it for granted. You have the iPhone, you know, you put it in your ear, you call somebody 100 miles away and you talk to them. You don't even realize that this is a miracle. Okay, it's a wave that's making it possible. You total some numbers that are unique to that one person. That person answers the phone. No other person can answer the phone. It could be 100 miles away, and you talk to them as if they are here. Okay, that is possible because of the waves. So there are cosmic waves, gamma rays, waves. There are thought waves, video waves, audio waves. My goodness, it's unending. This is what makes us all the oneness here, the oneness energy. From waves, they become the atomic particles. Atomic particles are very small atoms which are invisible to the naked eye, but they're still particles, so through magnification you can still see a particle. Then from that comes molecular structure. Molecular structure is the very structure, it's molecular, which means that it's densified and to a fluid form, but it's still densified. It becomes matter. So a car, a wall, a house, anything, even the human form. The human form is cellular structure. So this is called matter. Matter means something that you can touch, feel, sense. Okay? That all that came from the void. All that came from spirit. So spirit, you know, matter, what we call matter, everything we look, we see matter, but matter is 99.9% empty space. You see, everything is spirit. So now are you beginning to understand how everything is God, is spirit, is you, because you are that spirit. So now we also begin to understand, and we talk because he wanted to know more about void, and apparently I just read that email, and he's quite intelligent, and he wants to know how does it feel, void. Void, when you experience void, you experience tremendous peace. You see, you experience light. So the expression of light is a feeling rather than just, it's not electrical light, but it's just you light. Another thing that I'd like to that happened to me too, is that when I had that fever, now ever since I was 13 years of age, I had impaired vision, and I still have impaired vision. But when I had that fever, I had 20/20 vision. Yeah,
Interesting.
so it didn't last long, you know, maybe 24 hours, but I had to go. So I knew that something is happening that I need to go through. You see, but I couldn't explain it to Sylvia at the time. And when I knew I was dying, I didn't want to tell her that. But she saw it when she looked at me, because she saw what was happening. You see. Anyway, so this is it. There are many. Now you might say, Burt, can you explain what happened? No way. I don't know. I don't know what happened to Jerry. I don't know what happened to Eckhart Tolle. I don't know what happened to thousands and thousands of others that have gone through transformation. But what I can tell you is this, that life is benevolent, life is good, and life gives you what you are ready to take. And no matter what you are ready to stand, if you are deserving of the best, no matter how horrendous it might seem, it gives you always peace and non-fear. If you have no fear, there's no suffering, there's no pain, you see? So, okay, so we answered the first one, and I'll take the second one.
I've just a few days ago begun experiencing a realization that everything is God.
Oh, good.
I've been looking into non-dual spirituality for a few years. But a few days ago, I watched your Shifting Consciousness video for the second time, and later that day, the realization of oneness was present. This was accompanied by a surge of adrenaline most of the day, and everything began to look different to me, especially the natural world. The next day, the rush of energy faded, but I still saw the oneness. That first day was also accompanied by lots of sensations, vibrations in my third eye, face, neck, arms, legs. Meditation was so delightful and easy to drop into. This is day 4, and I am noticing that meditation is not as deep, and some noises come in with thoughts, sort of bombarding the attempt to go deep into meditation. I know I cannot hold the now, but wanted to see what you might say about all this. Of course, I want the delight of this experience to last and last. I've heard that when someone is shifting into an awakened state, that it could take a while for it to settle in. What do you say?
Okay. So, right now, I'll take a pause, and I'd like to hear from you. Okay? From you. Okay. From you. Yeah.
When we have these kinds of experiences, because I've had a few along the way, with meditation, you know, because you meditate a lot, it seems that you have those experiences.
Right.
And what I've learned is they're just signposts, like Eckhart Tolle talks about. They're just signposts that you're not supposed to grasp on to, I want that experience, and you're not supposed to have that experience all the time. It's like it's a gift to let you know to trust that there's something
Beautiful.
something there.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's, yeah. You said the perfect thing. That's exactly the answer to that letter. Okay, so we take the next one.
Hi Burt, already I enjoy your last couple of videos. Can you comment and advise on the following? About 10 weeks ago I saw that there is no fixed entity called root. Now I have been hit with massive anxiety and horrid physical symptoms. Cannot eat, cannot sleep, burning and sweating, shaking. My poor family. Advice range from sit quiet and watch, feel the sensation to let go or jump into the abscess. I don't want to descend into madness. What choice do I have? Love from terrified roots. P.S. I get the feelings that getting quiet and watching might be tantamount to resisting this.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How would you like to answer this?
Is fear the fear of you're not going to exist if you
There
surrender.
is still that fear, isn't there?
There's still that, just at that last gate,
That's
then
right.
you're going to go through,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
it's
Still
then I won't
that
exist.
it's holding on, right? Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. Feel out what is being written, because this helps you. I know Jerry, when he first started coming, I was turning to him because he's a psychologist, and so. But by doing this, a part of him came so alive, you know. And now I like him to sit next to me and share this, because it's become such a partnership. So try to go into this, you know. Try to feel it in your heart, what is being said, and then remember, say anything. It doesn't matter. There is really no wrong, you know. If something is not quite right, well, that's okay, you know. Yeah.
This awakened state that these people are talking about too it's a constant transition, it's a constant movement of your energy integrating, and it's ongoing as well. like you said, it's an experience and you want to keep it, but then it's just one piece of the onion being peeled away, and then the next thing comes because you're ready for the next thing finally.
Because you're ready for finally for the
Yeah.
next one.
Yeah.
And if you just keep holding on to that,
Yeah.
you cannot peel it anymore,
Yeah.
can you?
Yeah.
Right.
And as beautiful as our first or second or third or whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it awakening is, that anxiety comes up because it is the breaking down of what you thought you were and meeting it.
Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Thank you. Okay.
This is the new one?
Yes.
Okay. Hi Burt, I'm a woman. I've been following all your satsangs since March of this year. I've written to you a few times and I've received help. I'm in another bout of anxiety and fear. I've worked for months trying to stay connected to my inner self. But I've had regular bouts of jealousy, possessiveness, and anxiety attack like the one I'm in since Saturday. My friend, a guy whom I consider as family, and am so protective and possessive about, has let another of his friends, a girl of whom I used to be friendly with, but she decided to move away from me for reasons that I do not know. He moved in with him because she is looking for an apartment. I'm worried that they will get into a relationship, and I don't think she is right for him. And also I think I feel left out and jealous because 3 of us were very good friends once. I want to put my attention on positive things. Not this, but I'm in a very anxious state. Please help me. I really want to heal the insecurity and jealousy. I want to move on. I want to forgive her and not think of her in a negative light. Is it possible to love my family and this friend of mine with all my heart? Do everything I can for them? Think about their well-being and safety all day? And still be connected to my being? I know the answer is yes, but how do I do it? When I go through anxiety bouts, I feel like I need to be still, but other times I feel extremely pleased to get attention from them. God bless you. Lots of love and good wishes.
What a beautiful letter. And she's beautiful too because she's sincere, even though she's losing her best friend and her girlfriend and everything else, you know, but still she wants to love them. Do you see now how the second stage is developing there? You see? She's wanting to grow, wanting to love. So she's very, very beautiful. She has to keep on... well, you say it. Okay, what do you feel? Tell me.
Well, you had talked earlier about feeling the feeling of the anxiety, feeling the feeling of the fear without a story around it.
That's right.
And if she can find, okay, what does that feel like in my body? Where does the fear sit? How does it feel? Then you're just with the feeling. So I just thought of that because you had said that earlier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. Yeah. She has to experience what she's experiencing, and through that experience that we grow. We have to do it this way. Everything that happens to us, we've got to go through it in order to teach us what it needs to teach us. Because of one law. Remember this one law. Nothing happens by chance. There are no accidents. So if it's happening to you, it's meant to happen to teach you what is next.
Learn to surf.
And also a beautiful teacher like I showed you in the one that said that if you're grieving, remember that loss. And how did it say?
Whatever you
lost
will come back to you in a different
Will come back to you in a different form. Yeah, and it's also said that there's another one. I think it's Arabic poem, and it says that when God closes one door, He opens another. Okay, so let's go to the next.
Hello again, Burt. I want to thank you very much for your reply. I watched the video that you linked to me, and I realized that you were talking about exactly what I was looking for. So I understand that all I need is more work, more determination to pay attention. This also reminded me and made me understand clearly that story with the disciple who asked the master, "What can I do to see the truth?" And the master wrote on the sand, "Attention." And the disciple said, "Can you please be more specific?" And the master wrote down in capital letters, "Attention, attention, attention." Now I understand that story. That is what I need.
Because attention is everything, isn't it?
Yeah, more
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah.
Determination of paying attention as much as I can until I will clearly see that actually I am that attention. And this is what I am doing from now on. Thank you very much.
Mhm. Okay. I guess there was no asking.
I don't know if there's a
there.
question.
No.
Not in the
There was
top
no-
part of it. Do you want me to
Okay.
go to another
Do
one?
we see? Yeah, but before we do that, because attention is such a powerful one, you see, and the 3 stages, actually 4, but the 4th one happens by itself, are so important that we go through. Remember what they are, the 4?
Mhm.
4, okay? The first, there's always fear, always. Fear is our greatest bugaboo. This is through fear that we grow, through fear that we get our lessons, through fear that we learn to face and expand. If we defy the fear, if we resist it, if we run away from it, then that becomes depression, becomes suffering. And that can lead to an existential breakdown, you see? That's why psychiatrists are abound, because people resist what they fear. But when we learn from our fear, the biggest fear of all, what is the biggest fear of all, from which all fears come?
No love.
Hmm?
Not having love.
Not having love, but
Fear. Fear of loss of self?
fear of loss of self.
Mm.
The death of ego. That is the greatest known human fear. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, can you read the next one?
After reading many books of spirituality and after a lot of practices, I finally understand that I don't actually exist. At least not as a person. I know that I am not Gabriel as the person I thought I was, the person with problems and a job. I know that I am actually a concept learned in many years of conditioning. I know that I am the awareness which sees and feels everything. But the problem is I cannot identify myself with the awareness. I'm still identified with the ego. In other words, after a feeling, a perception, there comes a thought saying, this was a feeling, or this was a perception. So there's still an ego which tells me how the things are running. I cannot identify myself with the awareness. I know I'm already am awareness, but the identifying is still with me as the person.
Yeah. This is why I wrote that book. Okay? The book was totally written in PDF and I sent it to a lot of people for free, but the publisher said no, publish it because you'll be reaching more people and you get money for it too. Okay? So the last one, under awareness.
Awareness.
Yeah. Okay? You see, the one thing that most people don't understand, and they say they do, but I find that after a while the question that they ask proves that they didn't understand. The difference between awareness and consciousness, the difference between pure awareness and thought. Okay? And people don't understand that difference. What we call, you see, Course in Miracles says that God did not create the world. And when somebody said, what? The Bible tells us that the world was created by God, you know. And then it was answered very clearly. He says, would God create war? Would God create what is happening now in the world? Okay? But people still don't understand, because God is pure awareness. Pure awareness does not create in itself. It is only when it becomes thought that it creates. Okay? Evolution happens when we became human. Evolution happens through thought. Thought evolves. Awareness does not evolve. Awareness is perfection itself. So what we call the void, what we call space, what we call nothingness is who you are. You can never disappear. And that came clear to me when I was in the hospital. You see, dying, and I experienced the light. The doctor is saying, this is very serious. Oh, what do you mean serious? Nothing can happen to me. I am. I just am. What can happen to me? You see what I mean? But there's no way that a person can understand that, because they see you as a person. But in truth, you are not a person. You are being, playing a person. You see? And when we realize that, which is frightening, but is facing that fear that you're not an ego, that you go through that spiritual emergence. And when you go through it, it is because you're meeting that which you need to meet. You see, for example, a lot of people are complaining about different aches and pains and elevated blood pressure and heart spasms and dizziness. And this is happening worldwide, and people are going to doctors. But did you know that this is because we're moving into the fifth dimension? And the changes that are being, the body is being attuned, being ready for this change, you see? And this is happening worldwide. You've heard of this, right? These symptoms.
Yeah.
And
Just everything's intensifying.
everything is intensifying. Even suicide have come to the point where it's horrendous. The number I don't remember the name, but it's in the millions.
Is it the pressure?
The pressure.
Because consciousness is being raised.
Consciousness is being raised, yeah. And
But it should be an enjoyable experience rather than pressure.
yes, if we meet it.
Yeah.
If we meet it, but if we resist it, if we say, I don't like what is happening, then you become depressed. And when you become depressed, you depress it so much that your mind becomes fog, okay? And you cannot think logically, you cannot feel.
I feel too that it's the consciousness or spirit or whatever you want to call it, it's going to move in, and the body, if you don't meet it, like you say, the body reacts in that way of falling over or high blood pressure or whatever, because it's like if those two can't meet, then something's going to have to break, or
Right.
something's going to have to fall apart. So
Right, right. And the moment you you say I meet it, because I'm excuse me, I'm creating all this. Okay? Imagine if you say I'm creating all this. Did you know that if you say to yourself I am creating all this, becomes the healing?
Or I wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
I wanted it unconsciously. I wanted it. I created it. See, nothing that happens to you happens by chance. You created it, one form or another. And if you go into the kind of thoughts you've had, like for example, two people, they don't seem to get along. You know, they're living together as husband and wife, but they're just living between a wall, so to speak. The intimacy is not there. There's no sharing anymore. And they wonder what is happening. Why is he like this? Not realizing that could be your thoughts that creating this separation, you see, this wall. So, so until we really come to feel that whatever seems to be happening to me in my world, I created it. See? And the moment you face that, that becomes such an incredible shift. You see? The shift could be also, you could feel it in your body, because there's always different feelings, and then you know that this is just a temporary thing. Yeah. Okay. Is there, shall we stop here, or shall we answer some more?
It's up to you.
This is democracy.
Oh, democracy is not up to you.
It isn't really up to me, no. Did you want more?
I think I'm okay.
You're okay? You're
Yeah.
okay? Okay.
You created this.
Okay. Namaste.
Namaste.